Hi quilters, I'm Ann Nolan and I wanted to talk to you about being on Zoom and doing a quilting workshop or just quilting with a group of friends. It actually works out really well and I wanted to share that with people who haven't tried it. So this is the general rules. I've set up my computer or tablet or a smartphone in my sewing room. And the bigger the screen you have, the easier it is to see, but you know, it works no matter what you do. So right now I'm in my sewing room. Here's my sewing machine right here. So I've set it up so that when I'm sewing, the picture is right there and I can hear what's going on and I can look up and see when I need to. In a lot of the classes, you're going to be listening to the teacher. She's going to give you instructions, he or she, and then you're going to go off and do your thing. But the nice part about being on Zoom is that we're all closely connected, as close as your device here. So if the teacher is answering a question for someone else, you can listen in and learn from that as well. Really nice bonus. You also can see really well. You're right in the front row, which I always joke about me. I'm 6 foot tall, so all the short women get in front of me when the teacher's demoing, and I can't see as well. But on Zoom, I'm in the front row. All of us are in the front row. It's great. And a lot of the teachers will use 2 cameras, one to focus on them when they're talking, and a second camera that'll focus on the sewing machine or the ironing board or the cutting board, so you can really see what you need to do. So the ideal setup in your sewing room, and I say ideal because anything's going to work, is you have the camera in front of you. Don't have to be fancy. You can put it on a stack of books. You can lean it against a flower pot, whatever works. You just want to get it there so it's working. The ideal setup would be you have your sewing machine here where you can see the screen. I happen to have right here to the side of me, I have a ironing table set up, which is what I normally do. So it's right there and I don't have to get up. And behind me is not only my stash of fabric, but a cutting board that's at table height. You can make this a U shape. You can have the cutting on one side, you can have the ironing on the other, but I like the cutting board to be up at standing height. I do a better job of cutting, and it's good for me to get up once in a while and not be sitting all day. So anyway, whatever works in that. And then that's pretty much it. The teacher leads things and you follow along. It's nice. You might have to show the teacher something, so be aware of that. You have a question and you say, what do I do about this? And you can show them and they can see it. So you get all the benefits of a class, direct contact with the teacher. And if you're in a group, you can do show and tell with the group. You can ask other people there for help on something that you're struggling with, or just chit chat. Now, most of us are used to having the sound of a sewing machine in the background. So a lot of times it's best to just not mute your device at all, to go ahead and leave it open and you can sew. If it's too noisy, you can hit mute. And by the way, mute on Zoom kills the sound you're broadcasting, but you can still hear everyone else. So you can mute to take care of any background noise. Someone comes in to talk to you at home, your dog barks, or your machine happens to be really loud. You can mute that if you choose to, and then unmute it if you want to talk. So that's the basics, and I'm going to give you a few other tips, but that's how you set up. It's really simple. It's a good idea if you haven't quilted by Zoom yet to show up a few minutes early, if the group or the teacher allows that, so you can make sure you're in place and you're ready to go. And one more important tip for you. The most common comment that I hear when I've talked about sewing in your own home is that, oh my God, I'm going to have to clean up my sewing room. Well, I guarantee you mine is not that clean. But remember that you can aim the camera at only what you want us to see. And you can place the messy parts of your sewing room outside of the range of the camera. Just mentioning that in case you have a little anxiety over that, because quilting is a messy hobby, and the messier it is, the more creative you've been. So it's not something that we should be worrying about, even though we always do. I recently took a workshop, which was very good, by the way, but I asked some of the students in the class if they could give me some feedback on what it was like to take a workshop by Zoom rather than in person. So here's some feedback from Elizabeth. She said, the advantage of a Zoom workshop is being able to work in your own space with all of your resources at your fingertips and having your machine and supplies around. You get a front row seat and can see the instructor's demos very easily. The downside is not being able to see others' work. But if a workshop were offered and I had the chance to Zoom or attend in person, I would probably opt for Zoom. By the way, some of the workshops, this one included, we started sharing our completed projects by email because we happen to have access to each other's email. Here's one from Trina. Some of her comments included, I've taken several Zoom quilt classes and I really enjoyed them. The obvious reason is that you have all your tools and fabric on hand and don't have to transport them to a class. I felt that there were more access to the instructor via a Zoom class. She also mentioned that it was nice to have the ability to go to the restroom or get something to eat whenever you wanted. And let me see, this is Debbie. She said, I really enjoyed the class. I really enjoyed the fact that we were in our house and could work freely. And let's see, Letty said, I would be happy to share my experience. I especially liked having all my material and tools and not lugging the heavy sewing machine up and down the stairs, in and out of the trunk and all that. Seems I always wished I'd brought something different or additional. And then from Jerry, there was the exhibits can be seen up close and for an extended period of time. She also mentioned it was great not having to move her sewing machine and fabric. And she said there was no need to guess what to bring. Sometimes she wants to bring her whole stash. So a big plus, since you're never quite sure how much fabric to bring. And then she mentioned using Zoom, we can afford classes with teachers from all over the world with having to pay for travel and accommodations. Those are all good points. And I'll just sum it up by saying, we all learn to use these fancy computerized sewing machines, and Zoom is actually easier than that. So yes, it's a change, and change is always hard. But I challenge you to try a workshop or a group that's quilting together, because I think you'll find you really enjoy it. That's the feedback that I get, and that's my personal experience.